From those unexpected and unwanted revelations that left folks needing anything but more, to closing moments that left fans wishing they could be in another galaxy altogether. These are those surprising sci-fi shifts in direction that were too outrageous for even this wacky world. Gareth here from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 sci-fi movies with unexpectedly ridiculous plot twists. Number 10, H2O saves the day. Signs. For every M. Night Shyamalan unbreakable swerve and jaw-dropping The Sixth Sense deathly reveal, there is sadly a laughable H2O Achilles heel just waiting to leave you scratching your head. After spending an entire film watching the Hess family anxiously trying to figure out what in the holy hell is going to happen to their world, now that aliens have apparently decided to call it their own, it's revealed pretty late in the day that these terrifying extraterrestrials weren't actually the biggest fans of water. So these super advanced beings from outer space didn't think to double check whether or not their destination was mostly made up of a substance that was highly lethal to them. Right. And what do you know? Father Graham Hess's daughter, being so strangely obsessed with leaving glasses of the transparent liquid around the house, ended up coming in rather handy as his brother Merrill began swinging at an alien creature invading their home. Fancy that. After such an intriguing build-up, it's safe to say Shyamalan's feature well and truly drowned with this sloppy, damp squib of an ending. Number 9, Pikachu is the PAPI. Detective Pikachu. Warner Brothers' Pokemon-infused sci-fi noir by the name of Detective Pikachu came equipped with its fair share of side-splitting exchanges, enjoyable performances, and a fairly decent depiction of what a live-action world stuffed with the iconic critters would actually feel like. However, what it also unfortunately boasts is a few plot twists that don't exactly leave fans with their jaws dangling off the floor. Instead, the confirmation that Pokemon can actually be fused with their masters paves the way for some of the most ridiculous beats of the adventure. Hot on the heels of Bill Nighy's Howard Clifford revealing that he'd been the mind behind the creation of the R-gas that sent Pokemon feral, this being the state that allows for Mewtwo to fuse humans and their Pokepals together, sets the stage for a surreal sequence involving the secret villain slipping into that all-powerful Pokemon's body. You keeping up? And if that wasn't enough, the eventual besting of Clifford soon opens the door for the reveal that Mewtwo actually helped save the life of the pups of our leading light Tim by transferring his soul into the bright yellow sidekick who had been by his side throughout the investigation. Simply put, Ryan Reynolds was actually Tim's father Harry trapped inside a Pikachu all along. But the film doesn't really specify how Mewtwo was able to keep him from dying after a car crash. And it also makes the fact that Tim didn't recognize his own father's voice within the adorable Pokemon detective for an entire movie a little, well, odd to be honest. Number 8, it was all a game? Serenity. A strong twist is able to completely catch an audience off guard without entirely derailing the experience of watching the feature in question. 2019 Serenity's attempt at pulling off this feat, though, quickly left audiences feeling a little cheated for getting caught up in the apparent story of fisherman Baker Dill looking to help his ex-wife kill off her abusive new husband. As it goes, the frequent shots of Dill's son Patrick tapping away at a computer throughout the movie were far more than what they seemed. Patrick has actually found a way to create a freakishly sophisticated virtual reality game that involves a central character based on his late father as a way of dealing with the resentment he feels towards his abusive real-life stepdad. And just like that, a basic but still rather intriguing concept of a man trying to save his ex-wife and son from the evil new fella on the scene is well and truly flipped on its head. And the star-studded cast is soon dumped into a virtual scenario that asks its audience to contemplate a world where a kid happily sat back and watched his parents digitally bang on a boat. Number 7, Scarlet Witch bullies the Illuminati. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's got multiverses in it counts as sci-fi, okay? The second it became clear that the MCU was finally on the verge of unleashing the legendary Illuminati faction into their extended universe during Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, fans quickly began fantasizing over who could be rocking up on the famous super team and how they would make their presence known in the Marvel sphere. Well, in the end, fresh off of reintroducing Patrick Stewart's Professor Xavier, sensationally delivering on the fan casting of John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, and unveiling a number of other satisfying members, Sam Raimi and co opted to completely laugh off the idea of the Illuminati being a force to be reckoned with in their bids to present the Scarlet Witch as one of the biggest multiversal threats to date. And while it most definitely achieved that goal, with Wanda quickly and horrifically disposing of perhaps the strongest collection of heroes to grace the MCU outside of the Central Avengers, the all-round swerve of Professor X, Captain Marvel and Carter, Black Bolt and Reed Richards being ripped to shreds with relative ease still just felt like a lazy and ridiculous way of binning off a bunch of characters that many have been angling to see within this live-action universe for an age. Number 6, you're a Palpatine, Rey. Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. You can really take your pick in terms of absolutely ludicrous plot twists here that the Force most definitely wasn't strong with. But bizarre last-minute romances, unnecessary returns, and strange resurrections all paled in comparison to the biggest and baddest swerve of the lot. That being the sequel trilogy's leading protagonist was far from a nobody after all. She was Emperor Palpatine's granddaughter. Yep, instead of just committing to the development a film earlier of just about any Force-sensitive nobody being able to make an impact on this intergalactic battle between good and evil, J.J. Abrams decided to foolishly deliver on a fan theory that had long since been abandoned due to it quite rightly seeming too dumb to be true. Oh, how wrong those folks were, eh? This blatant attempt to stun the audience managed to successfully shrink the galaxy far, far away even more than it already had been throughout the sequels. And it also proved once again that the hit-and-miss Disney Star Wars trilogy appeared to be bafflingly making it up as it went along. Number 5, turns out Major is actually Japanese in the end. Ghost in the Shell. It already felt like a pretty major mistake not casting a Japanese actor in the leading role heading into 2017's live-action adaptation of popular manga series Ghost in the Shell, with the DreamWorks and Paramount Pictures project instead opting for the well-known face of Scarlett Johansson as Major instead. But if that wasn't enough to leave a bitter taste in fans of the character's mouths, then the eventual reveal of Johansson's Mira Killian actually sporting the brain of a Japanese girl by the name of Motoko Kusanagi, the character's original name in the source material, only added more controversy to the already roaring fire of negative press. In a move described by some as simply white people trying to justify the casting, the swerve of this particular ghost within the shell very much being Japanese all along, and dumped inside of a rather white-looking body, felt entirely tone-deaf by the time it landed in theatres. And it's safe to say this attempt at boldly and unexpectedly infusing the high-profile controversy into the film's narrative didn't exactly help the flop of a sci-fi feature justify its eventual existence, or said ill-advised casting choice in the end. Number 4, bested by a secret evil society and a puddle, Glass. With Glass seeing unbreakable and split central supernatural figures of David Dunn, Elijah Price and Kevin Wendell Crumb all coming together under the roof of a psychiatric hospital, the closing stages of the series eventually opts to dump an entirely unwanted development into the mix that comes completely out of left field. After witnessing the super strong David be shockingly and somewhat disappointingly drowned in a puddle, and the long theorized reveal of Kevin's father being on the train Mr. Glass crashed in Unbreakable come to fruition, M. Night Shyamalan unleashes one more late twist just for good measure. As David, Kevin and Glass all circle the drain, it's hilariously revealed that Dr. Ellie Staple is actually part of a secret society that has been suppressing superhumans for an age from the shadows, with her job being to keep these particular threats from causing chaos in the world. Instead of leaving those watching on in a state of stunned amazement, however, this last-minute twist too far just felt entirely tacked onto the series. And one that was pretty difficult to digest, seeing as though there'd been next to no hint of these clover-tattooed figures existing at any other point in the features. Number 3, Ape Lincoln, Planet of the Apes 2001. There was a time when Tim Burton seemed to have killed any and all interest in the Planet of the Apes series with one of the most absurd final twists of all time. Clearly taking inspiration from the original 1968 classic's unexpected conclusion that reveals Charlton Heston's George Taylor has actually been on Earth throughout the runtime and not an unknown planet. The 2001 remake bowed out with Mark Wahlberg's Captain Leo Davidson making quite the discovery himself late in the day, with Leo actually arriving on another planet in the future by the name of Ashlar after heading into a storm in space. The closing stages involve the astronaut finally heading back in time to his home world of Earth, only to find out that the apes he'd come into contact with on that planet, specifically General Thade, had somehow managed to beat him home and take over his own world. While it isn't really explained how the ape managed to pull this off in the film itself, because who needs explanations, Davidson returns to his own time and suddenly spots a now infamous and wholly hilarious Thade-ified version of Abraham Lincoln's Washington DC statue before Leo is eventually surrounded by the ape police. Because reasons. Number 2, Hancock's immortal wife derails the fun, Hancock. Up until a certain point, the Will Smith starring 2008 anti-superhero chunk of sci-fi action comedy that was Hancock delivered a surprisingly compelling tale about a flawed super being who doesn't really know what to do with the immortal and superhuman gifts he possesses. Yet things start to get a little pointlessly complicated the second it's revealed that Hancock's PR specialist pal Ray's wife is actually a fellow super immortal. And not only that, she's actually Hancock's former wife, but simply opted to start a new life the second it became clear he'd lost his memory after an attack 80 years earlier. How sweet. Making matters that bit more convoluted, just to really dilute the fun, it turns out that if these two super spouses spend too long around one another, they become mortal. And it's this development that ultimately paves the way for a once darkly humorous character study to become an overly serious tragedy as the feature heads into its final stages. Without this soap opera twist, Hancock likely could have maintained its promising early momentum until the very end. But with it, the entire end product just winds up feeling like two separate films stitched together with string. Number 1, the Vulture wants Spider-Man. For some reason, Morbius. Rocking up in the end credits of Sony's most recent slice of Spider-Man universe chaos that was Morbius, Michael Keaton's Adrian Toomes offered up the mother of all ludicrous plot twists in the form of a sudden villainous appearance that made about as much sense as the SSU as a whole. Feeling the need to create a team to seemingly combat Spider-Man, the freshly teleported Vulture unexpectedly asked Jared Leto's vampire anti-hero for his assistance, to which Morbius replies, "Intriguing. That's one word for it." None of this explains how or even why Toomes ends up in this universe, with no one else being dragged from their original place in the MCU and dumped into another part of the multiverse by Doctor Strange's No Way Home spell. And the fact Vulture suddenly feels the need to align himself with a person he hardly even knows instead of figuring out how to get back to his precious family felt hugely strange too. In all honesty, the entire surreal twist just reeks of a desperate attempt to link the SSU to the MCU, and also forge that long suggested Sinister Six team-up. They really want to do it, don't they? They just can't drop it. And that's our list. Know of any other sci-fi movies with unexpectedly ridiculous plot twists? Let us know all about them in the comment section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're down there. Also, if this kind of thing is your bag, then head on over to whatculture.com and find some more incredible articles just like the one this video you're watching right now is based on. I have been Gareth from whatculture.com. Thank you as always for clicking on this video today. Hopefully I'll see you very soon, but in the meantime, stay twisty. Ha!